Welcome in, everyone, to Lively Lewis Stories.
That's right, we're back with even more awesome adventures with Levi and Ivy.
Set your storytime meter to fun and get ready to join the Lively Lewis crew.
All you need is your imagination and...
Off we go!
I can't wait to see where our story takes us today.
Have you ever wanted to get more Lively Lewis in your life?
Well, we've got you covered.
Grab an adult and zoom over to livelylewisshop.com.
Or just click on the link in our show notes.
Enough about that. Let's get to today's super Lively Lewis story.
While on a family camping trip in a remote and tranquil little town, Levi and Ivy had the most magical adventure. It was early morning and their parents were still asleep. The sun stretched out a beam of light that shone directly on Levi and Ivy's tent, waking them up in the most calming way. Levi was the first one to pop his head out the tent and notice the fine droplets of mist dancing in the sunbeam. It looked like a dream, and Levi had a feeling that a unique experience was right around the corner. As he gazed at the misty scene, Ivy woke up and joined him. "Wow!" exclaimed Ivy in an early morning whisper. "I've never seen anything like this before. I'm going out there." Levi agreed with his sister and followed close behind as they toppled out of their tent onto their misty, magical campsite. They spun around in the light, dewy mist, and the sun felt warm and welcoming. It was as if they could hear the forest calling to them to explore and seize the day. They knew they couldn't leave the campsite without telling their parents, and they were still fast asleep. So there was only one thing to do. Wake them up! Levi and Ivy skipped and twirled over to their parents' tent and gently knocked on the outside flap. "Mom, Dad," Levi whispered at first. "Mom! Dad!" Ivy added in a much louder voice, joining Levi. It was then that their parents jumped up from their slumber, nearly knocking over their tent. "Levi! Ivy, we're up! What's wrong? Is it a bear?" yelled their mom, trying to get the tent flap open unsuccessfully. Levi and Ivy couldn't help but laugh and tried their best to calm down their mom. "Mom, everything's fine," started Ivy. "There's no bear out here." But their mom was in such a frenzy that she didn't hear them and busted out of the tent with Levi and Ivy's dad not far behind, although still very much asleep. "What? Who? A deer?" mumbled Levi and Ivy's dad, rubbing his eyes and trying to figure out what was going on. Once both their parents were up and out of their tent, Levi and Ivy could finally answer all their questions. "Mom, there's no bear," said Ivy. "There's also no deer, Dad," laughed Levi. "We just wanted to wake you up and ask if we could go for a walk," added Ivy. "It's so beautiful this morning and we want to do a little exploring. We won't wander far from the campsite, okay?" continued Levi. "Please, please, please, please." When their mom finally caught her breath and their dad finally fully woke up, they agreed that after breakfast, Levi and Ivy could definitely take a walk. They also had quite a long discussion about the acceptable ways to wake someone up out of a sound sleep while camping. Once Levi and Ivy were done eating and dressed for the day, they said goodbye to their parents and headed off into the forest. Giant trees towered overhead as birds soared through the sky. Their chirps and tweets provided a soundtrack for their day. Rustling leaves added to the forest symphony, along with croaking frogs, buzzing bees, and babbling of a brook nearby. As they walked, the once warm sunbeams became quite hot. "I'm getting pretty warm. Are you?" asked Ivy to Levi. "Totally. How about we go find that brook and dip our feet in the water to cool off?" suggested Levi. Ivy loved the idea, and off they went. Once they found the cool, flowing water, they quickly removed their hot hiking boots and enjoyed a nice, cool soak. As they rested, they looked around, as this was a part of the new forest they had never seen, and it didn't take long for both of them to notice something unusual. "Levi, do you see that?" said Ivy, pointing to an area by the brook overgrown with vines and bushes. "Are you pointing at that little cave opening over there?" asked Levi, taking his feet out of the brook. "Yep." "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" asked Ivy, trying to dry off her feet with some leaves before putting her hiking boots back on. "We should go and explore that cave," shouted Levi as he quickly laced up his boots. They cautiously made their way over to a little cave opening, both nervous and excited as to what they would find. The cave was expectedly dark and cool, but not scary at all. Instead, there was a kind of calming and magical feel to this place, just like the way their campsite had felt earlier that morning. They couldn't help themselves as they slowly walked inside. That's when the dark cave burst to light with vibrant color and shimmering light. Once their eyes adjusted to the splendor before them, they could see that they were standing in a cave filled with magical, mystical, amazing gems. The dull gray rocky walls of the cave were covered with sapphires, diamonds, emerald, pearls, and more. Every color accounted for and every gem more beautiful than the last they saw. "Where are we?" asked Levi slowly. "Someplace amazing," answered Ivy. It feels like a dream." They decided they had to walk further into the cave, and as they walked, they saw that there were also gemstones lining the path that they were walking on. Glistening, bright greens, blues, purples, reds, and pinks lit the way as they walked deeper into the cave. Then all at once, when they didn't think it could get any better, the pathway opened up into the most spectacular chamber filled with even more gems than when they had already seen. The gems were so spectacular that Levi couldn't help but reach down to pick one up. "Levi, I don't know if you should do that," said Ivy quickly. "These aren't our gems. What if we're not supposed to touch them? I just don't want to make anyone or anything that lives in this cave mad." "Good point," said Levi. "But what harm would I do if I just picked up one little gem? And there's so many in here. Would the cave even notice if one was missing? I mean, I have to bring at least one of each back to Mom and Dad. They'll never believe this place exists if we don't have proof." Ivy listened to her brother, and he was making a lot of sense. There must have been thousands of gems in that one chamber. "I guess you're right," Ivy said hesitantly. "Maybe one little tiny gem would be okay to take." It was then that the magic of the cave took over, and all they could see were the amazing gems glistening before them. It was almost hypnotizing. They each reached down at the same time and picked up a gem. Ivy grabbed an emerald. It was her favorite color, green, and Levi grabbed a bright blue sapphire. As they held the gems in their hands, they felt a little light breeze begin to swirl around them, but they didn't think much of it. Then they felt a tiny tremble under their feet, but were still too overwhelmed by the beauty of the cave to give it much thought. However, when the walls started to shake and the trembling intensified, they couldn't ignore it anymore. "Levi, what's going on? I'm scared," called out Ivy to her brother as she lost her grip on the emerald and it fell to the ground. "I don't know, Ivy. I'm scared too." He dropped his sapphire and quickly ran back toward the entrance of the cave with Ivy. However, before they could make it back out to the forest, a gigantic rock rolled in front of them, sealing off the entrance and trapping both of them inside the cave. Levi and Ivy hugged each other tight as they stood amongst the glowing gems in the dark cave. They didn't know what they would do next, but had lots of questions. How would they ever get out? Would they ever get out? When would their parents come looking for them? But they were forgetting to ask one very important question. Was there anything in the cave that could help them get out? As the silence became overwhelming, Levi turned to Ivy and asked, "What are we going to do?" That's when Ivy noticed the cave was getting brighter. In the darkness, all of the gems began to glow brighter than ever, and before they knew it, Ivy and Levi were standing in a bright kaleidoscope of color. "Something very interesting is happening here," said Ivy, looking around. "Yeah, Ivy, we're stuck in a giant gem cave in the middle of nowhere and no one knows we're here," exclaimed Levi. "But I'd say that's more concerning than interesting." "No," replied Ivy quickly. "What's interesting is that the gems are getting brighter. I think they're trying to tell us something. I think once I read that gems can possess different energies and maybe we can use that energy to get out of the cave." Levi was up for trying anything at that moment and told Ivy he was ready to follow her lead. Levi and Ivy walked to the large chamber towards the back of the cave where they had picked up the gems before getting stuck inside. As they walked closer, they could feel something, some kind of powerful energy that was calling them forward. "Ivy, I think you're right," said Levi. "I can definitely feel something." Without thinking twice, Ivy put her hand on a blue sapphire that was wedged in the wall of the cave. Immediately, she felt a sense of strength come over her, and as if she could move that rock that blocked the cave's entrance if she gave it a try. But when she took her hand off the sapphire, that feeling went away. "That was amazing," said Ivy, telling her brother about what had just happened. "You should try it. Here, touch that emerald." Levi reached out and grabbed a hold of the emerald on the cave wall nearby. Immediately, he felt a sense of courage come over him, as if he could do whatever it took, conquer any fear he had, to get himself and Ivy out of the cave. But when he took his hand off the emerald, the feeling went away. "Ivy, I think I have an idea," said Levi. "We need to join the energy of these gems together. They are so powerful that if we do, we will be able to escape this cave. I just know it. Ivy totally agreed, and each walked around testing out the energy of the other gems. And as they did so, they discovered that diamonds gave off a calming energy and pearls gave off a knowledge energy. When holding a diamond, Ivy felt a wave of peace wash over her. It helped her to clear her head and to give her the ability to focus all her energy on the task at hand. When Levi took a hold of the pearl, he felt all of his senses sharpen and was able to think clearly, seeing solutions to the problems in his head clear as day. But for Levi and Ivy to get out of the cave, they knew they needed all the gem energy they could muster. So to do that, they had to find the biggest version of each of the 4 powerful gems that they could. After searching for what seemed like forever, Ivy walked to the blocked entrance of the cave with a giant sapphire and diamond. And only a few steps behind her was Levi carrying a giant emerald and pearl. "Are we ready to try this?" asked Ivy. "I think we are," said Levi, sounding a bit hesitant. "But you don't think it will be too much energy, do you?" "There's only one way to find out," said Ivy. "But no matter what happens, we're here together." Levi and Ivy, each holding 2 gems in their hands, took a deep breath, put each one on the ground, and made sure they were all touching. As soon as they did this, a powerful wave of energy washed over the cave and Levi and Ivy. It was amazing. Since the gems were so big, they didn't have to be holding on to them to feel the energy, which left them able to work together to get out of the cave. They felt invincible, strong, confident, calm, and so smart. Without waiting for even a moment more, Levi and Ivy turned their attention towards the rolling rock away from the entrance of the cave using their extreme strength. They were calm and determined and moved it with little effort as they worked together. To keep the rock from rolling back when they let it go, Levi found a smaller rock and wedged it under the giant rock while Ivy held it in place. They encouraged each other as they went along, and in no time, the cave entrance was open once again. They could see the sun's warm rays shining down through the tall trees in the forest, and they couldn't wait to be outside. But before they left the cave, Levi and Ivy wondered if they should take the giant gems with them. "Think of all the good we could do with these," said Levi, "and the fun we could have." "I know," replied Ivy, "but I think this is where they belong. The beauty of the natural world is meant to stay where it grows. That's one of the things that makes it all so magical. This place is so special because of these gems, and this is where they belong." Levi knew Ivy was right, and before walking back into the forest, he and his sister placed the giant gems back in the chamber at the far end of the cave. They said goodbye to the gems, thanking them for their amazing energy, and vowed that they would return again and do everything they could to make sure the gems remained in the cave forever, where they belonged. They learned that day the power of unity and togetherness, and also how important it is to appreciate and respect the magic of the natural world around us. "Mom! Dad!" shouted Ivy as she and Levi ran back into camp, startling their parents for the second time that day. "I thought we talked about the proper way to greet people this morning," said Levi and Ivy's mom. "Nope, that talk was just about proper ways to wake people up," giggled Levi. "You'll never believe what we just found," said Ivy, quickly changing the subject as they told their parents all about their amazing, energy-packed, gem-filled adventure. Want to start a podcast? Spotify has an easy, free platform called Spotify for Podcasters. Here's how it works. Record and edit your podcast on your phone or computer with ease. Share your podcast on Spotify and all other major platforms. You can even make video podcasts on Spotify. If you want to engage with your audience more, use Q&A and polls. You can earn money through ads and podcast subscriptions. It's completely free, no hidden cost. Give it a try. Visit www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. We love making our podcast, and working with Spotify has been amazing. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned a little something too.
And since we know everyone has their own story, we'd love to hear yours.
If you have an idea for a Lively Lewis story, leave a comment on our Apple Podcast review page with 5 stars, your idea, and your little one's name.
Then maybe our next adventure will be with you.
Until our next Storytime Hangout.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share another fun, Lively Lewis story with you.